Tarot. How bad is this movie? Wow, it's not very good. It's fairly run of the mill. It's going to get picked apart by us hardcore horror fans. Guys, what's this movie about? Should you waste your money to go see it this weekend? Tarot is a movie about a bunch of kids that are at this cabin and they find a tarot deck and they do a reading, but the reading is cursed. And of course, they end up getting picked off one by these demonic creatures that reside in the cards, like the hermit, the magician, death, of course, obviously. And some of the creature design, as a horror fan, I would say was rather well done. But what are you going to get out of this? It's a fairly quickly paced movie, so it gets right into it right away. But then it takes like 20 minutes for the actual title card to come up. So that's kind of like, okay, we're getting right into them doing the tarot card readings. But then like 20 minutes later, you're like, boom, tarot. Wait a minute, there's only an hour left in this movie. What's going on here? So that's what I mean by it moving rather quickly. And because of that, I said straight out of the theater reaction in my little mini review there that because it's so quickly paced and edited, you don't really have time to know these characters. So they're very cardboard, very surface level. And because of that, people will pick it apart and say it's not very good. And I can't disagree with it. But as a seasoned film critic, I suppose, I look at it and say, well, I know what they were trying to do. It's very entry-level horror. Jacob Batalon is the big name that you know. He was like Ned in the Spider-Man movies. He's actually not all that good of an actor. And that could be because of the dialogue, because of the quick pacing of the editing. It's just so hammy. It's so over the top. And that's what I mean by very entry-level horror here. Because it's kind of like, this is the type of movie where if you are just a casual movie watcher, this is something that you put on in the background and you can look at your phone and you're not going to miss anything. If you're scared, you'll be able to look at your phone and you just have fun because it's jump scares. This is not the kind of movie where it's going to linger with you up here, kind of like The Conjuring or Sinister. Or it's nothing like that, and it's nothing as auteur-ish as say Hereditary. Is it something that was trying to be a little bit like Cabin in the Woods? Maybe, but I looked at Tarot and I got whiffs. I got notes of say like Dead Silence, of movies like that where it's just kind of like there's a schlocky kind of gimmick to it, where it's kind of like, okay, it's there. It's going to come and go, and people aren't going to talk about it, and that's what you should be expecting from the Tarot movie. So let's go over and take a look at my early score sheet here and put in some numbers. Acting, directing, story are of a possible 2 points each, with score and cinematography 1 point each. So acting is not all that great, but it is serviceable. There is the main girl in this who does the readings. Did okay, but it's hammy. It's over the top for the most part. The biggest problem was that there was too many characters. I would have dialed it back to maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 that read the cards, and then people. Then when somebody dies, you feel a little bit more of the weight. Directing is fair, mediocre. Story, intriguing idea. Just it felt like a made-for-TV movie almost. Cinematography, it's a darkly lit film. When you watch this and when you see this on the streaming services, you're going to have to crank up the intensity of the brightness because it's kind of like it is dark. Luckily, because I saw it in the theater, it didn't bother me. The score, it's serviceable. There's no really big needle drops in here. So that's where I'm sitting, around 4 out of 10 right now, before I go over to take a look at the snapshot reviews on the tomato meter, which we'll do right now. So let's see what the people on Rotten Tomatoes are saying. Oh my sweet Jesus. 6%, right? 18 reviews for Tarot. Guys, it's not that bad. It's not a 6% movie. And you can see, like, I was being pretty critical on it, and I am being critical on it. but I'm also trying to tell you what you can get out of this movie as well, right? Like, how bad is this? Well, I told you, the acting is hammy. It's cheesy. It's quickly paced, at least, so you move through the story well. You're not going to be going into a lull at any time in the story that'll be like, just get on with it, for God's sake. It's not like that. And some of the costume designs are okay. It's interesting. So it's nowhere near a 6. So this is what I meant in my straight out of the theater reaction, is that people who are not like the surface off the cuff thing is to say, oh yeah, James, it's terrible. It's awful. All I want to hear you say, James, is that tell me how terrible and bad it is. Well, I am, but I'm not gloating about it. But I'm also trying to, as I said, give you things that may be redeemable about it, and who perhaps this audience is for, like why this movie was made, like who it's directed towards. So let's take a look at some of the snapshot reviews. Matt Donato, somebody we trust here, didn't like it. If we're comparing failed Final Destination and 13 Ghosts rehashes, Tarot is up there with the worst. Yeah. It accomplishes what it wanted to do, though. There's no lingering question. Does it stupid and silly towards the end? Yeah. And it, David Nusser, an intriguing premise that is, by and large, employed to hopelessly and aggressively lackluster effect. Is there anybody here that has a good review up? William Bibiani. There's an honesty to this kind of pop filmmaking that's easy to admire, even if it doesn't necessarily make the actual movie any better. All right. Okay, somebody liked it over at Collider. While it still manages to scare, inflicting fairly brutal scenes of violence on characters we have to come to care about and understand, would have made Tarot go from scary to downright horrifying. That's a long-winded sentence. Is there some... While it still manages to scare, yeah, it's got jump scares, and that's it, jump scares. Inflicting fairly brutal scenes of violence on characters we have come to care about. So there it sounds like you care about the characters, but you don't, because they're so cardboard. It's like they're meant to die. Why do we care about these people, right? And understand would have made Tarot go from scary. Yeah. I can't. For the most part, it's not a good movie, right? I concede that wholeheartedly. But it feels like novice filmmaking of somebody's first attempt, right? And it's kind of like, well, it's there. It doesn't offend me. there you go. As a horror fan, it does not offend me. It's just not very good. Tarot. Let's wrap up this thing, man. Watchability factor. If you found the premise interesting, yeah, I would maybe check this out. Let's give that a 0.5. It's not worth going to the theater. Wait for streaming. 4.5 for Tarot. Could I knock it down for directing? Perhaps, because of the pacing, because of the script. There are some performances in here where you know that it's like, okay, these actors are trying, but the dialogue, you need sometimes to give dialogue some breathing room, right? To go, oh, but it's constantly right on to the next thing. If they're not talking, they're moving into another scene. So it's kind of like that. That's what I mean by how quick this movie's paced. So yeah, 4.5 out of 10 feels right. It feels like it's made for the TikTok crowds. That's it right there. I nailed it right on the head with Tarot. It's made for the TikTok crowds who constantly just swipe through media. That's how quickly paced this movie is. Tarot, horror, 4.5. What do you guys think? Out of this and The Fall Guy, guys, obviously go see The Fall Guy. You're going to have a lot more fun watching that. But as horror fans, we got to check these things out, and we got to have somewhat of a measured response. Hey, if you like this kind of thing, guys, we do this live, and we film these live. I take great pride in that. So let's take some live comments here from people in the live chat. Homo says, Tarot, I'm waiting for streaming. I feel if I watch Tarot in theaters, it looks like a movie that I'm probably going to walk out of the theater. Yeah, some people, I wouldn't blame you if you did. Pomo said, like, when I watched the first Omen, I almost walked out. Well, it's not as, well, it's worse than the first Omen. Like, the first Omen had some qualities about it for sure that was kind of like, okay, well, they're trying to make a decent film here. Pomo, Fall Guy for sure, but sorry to Tarot, even if I do love the cast. Yeah. So, guys, that's my review. If you liked what you've seen, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. What else can you find here on the channel? Well, you can get trailer reactions for things like Deadpool and Wolverine. My April movies ranked video is up on the channel right now. Go check that out. We got movie reviews for The Fall Guy, so come see that. And Tarot, this review will be chopped up and put up on the channel later on. We got reviews for Boy Kills World, full series reactions for Fallout and Reacher. Really good series right there. And of course, then we do movie news headlines throughout the week where we talk about all the trending movie news headlines of the day. Let me know what you thought about Tarot in the comments below, and we will talk about it. You're watching Mirror Domains. I gotta make sure that I don't hit the stop streaming button when I do these things, because I don't want to accidentally lose the stream. Oh, so Pomo, you didn't like the first Omen, huh? That makes two of us.